CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. All right, thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to carve up an interesting topic around digital transformation, which certainly applies to CMMS. We're joined by Adam Napolitano, and we are going to carve up this idea of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, otherwise known as FUD, and the confusion that customers out there are facing across this big landscape filled with magic silver bullets that don't deliver when it comes to digital transformation. Adam, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and a lot of this comes from there was a post that was out there, and we were both in there making comments and talking about it. First thing out of the gate, I just want, give us some brief background, and you go back as far as you want to, and then just bring us up to current with your experience and why this kind of stuff is important to you.
Sure thing. I started out on the implementation side, engineering services, master data, field walkdowns, all the base level stuff you need to have a good CMMS, good EAM, good systems in general on the operational side. Moved into kind of building practices and realized I like talking about it more than I like doing it. So I moved more onto the sales side, joined IBM when they acquired MRO software. So was a Maximo guy for a long time. And then made the shift probably about a decade ago to industrial IoT. So the plumbing and the framework that kind of sits and enables all of this Industry 4.0 digital transformation, pick your buzzword. And of late, I've been focused on really advising both companies and the end users, so the manufacturing, energy, and utilities community, and companies in the software space or the hardware space around this digital transformation and how to build the right ecosystem to actually solve problems and drive value and get out of the marketing hype that we know is plentiful. So that's kind of where my passion is to really help put the right players in the right room at the right time, solve some problems for folks. I try not to use terms like ROI too much because we all can make up our own ROI, but it's like, what problems can you solve? Who can you hook up with in the ecosystem to solve those problems better, faster, cheaper? Pick two. And sometimes if we're lucky, we pick all three. I mean, look, there's a lot of good things happening in the market. When you look at the price points in particular on some of the technology that's been available for decades, whether you want to call it condition monitoring, predictive maintenance, pick your poison again. Those technologies aren't new. They've gotten more efficient. They've gotten cheaper in some regard. They've gotten more real time. Whereas, many years ago, you would walk around with a handheld data collector for vibration or other technologies and get one reading a month, one reading a quarter, and figure out if there's a problem, schedule work, go fix that work. That's executed in your CMMS. Now you can get, for high value targets, wired sensors that are connected and feeding data all the time. You can get wireless sensors that are giving you 2, 3, 4 readings a day or more, depending on what you need. So you're getting a lot more data and a lot more things that can help you pinpoint better strategies around this. So I think, there's some great things happening, but I think the issue oftentimes that we're seeing is the hype is being generated by folks that maybe didn't come in out of the industry, but came in because unplanned downtime became a, quote, really sexy term for CEOs and CFOs with the dawn of IIoT. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of VC money, private equity money, and a lot of folks that came from other industries started building technology in the space. And what they didn't necessarily invest in is subject matter or domain experts that have gotten grease under their fingers, have been out on the plant floor, really understand that. And that's a generalization. There are great companies. We're not going to talk about names, but I don't want to make it sound like everybody's in that basket. But there's been a lot of companies that got formed on an idea And the one I will point out is that they'll often say, we're going to be the Google of this, that, or the other thing. Google didn't set out to be Google. Google set out to revolutionize search. They didn't just set out to be Kleenex or Q-tips or whatever. They didn't set out to be a brand. They set out to fix a problem and catalog and provide information. So when you try to mimic somebody who caught lightning in a bottle, you probably won't. But if you actually sit there and try to solve a problem for somebody and really get into the nuts and bolts and form the right pieces and parts to solve it, I think you're going to solve it effectively more often than not.
So interesting the way you're putting that, because there's so many sides to this when it comes to what we're doing and why. And first, what I mean by that is, what are we doing as, for example, a CMMS provider? Did we see an opportunity and a gap, and then we wanted to go and kind of shore up, close that gap, and capitalize on that? And we didn't really know much about turning the wrench, preventing wrench turning, or any of those, kind of concepts of being there and having done the work. There are plenty of viable things that happen out there in the world, in the space of maintenance management overall, when somebody hasn't done the actual work but has a solution for that industry. That happens,
Sure.
certainly. Then there's this idea of, what are we in business for as a provider of said technology, CMMS or otherwise, IoT, sensors, vibration, all these things. Well, we want to sell a bunch of stuff and generate a bunch of money. Okay, good, fine, no problem. Now, are you really solving a problem? And then on the other side of that whole thing, you've got the customers, the users that need this technology. And let's pretend for a moment that they've got a great foundation, foundational excellence when it comes to maintenance best practices. They've got all that. They've got good culture. They're managing things pretty well, but now they need some technology. Maybe they already have a CMMS, and now they're going to go, well, IoT could make an impact, because we're going to pretend it's a 5-stage kind of levels of maintenance maturity. Maybe they're at level 2 and they want to go to level 3. We could probably argue that that's connected to industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, or maybe something like that. And something happens in that whole transition where you get kind of the green sales rep, or the people that are maybe overly focused on, I want to be really fair about this, overly focused on selling stuff but they don't realize, or maybe they know, that it doesn't need to be sold that much. I'm talking about, there's something that happens in the middle where it all makes sense and everybody's winning. You got a good sale because it made sense, because you solved a real problem, but you didn't sell 2,000 sensors.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you sold 80 of them because there were only 80 assets that met the criticality necessary to utilize and benefit from that technology. Do you see what I'm kind of swimming around here? I'm dancing around it, but what do you think of all that?
Yeah, I'll put on my tap shoes and try and do the same. Uh, I think you've hit on something very, very near and dear to what I sit there and talk about, which is, unfortunately or fortunately, everybody we call on, if you're talking about CMMS, they do maintenance. Whether they do it well or they do it poorly, they do maintenance. Uh, Otherwise, they're replacing equipment, and that's not a very viable business strategy. So whether they're doing condition-based, predictive, RCM, pick your acronyms, or they're doing justified run to fail, whatever the case may be, you're doing maintenance. So if you use the jobs to be done theory, they're doing the job. It's whether they're doing it effectively and efficiently. So if you're trying to sell somebody CMMS, their CMMS may be a yellow legal pad. It may be an Excel spreadsheet. It may be one of dozens or hundreds of CMMS, from ones that cater to small single site facilities to up through beyond CMMS and into enterprise asset management with some of the big 3-letter companies and others that have provided these technologies for years. So there's no shortage of tech that you can use as the baseline for your maintenance program. And then it's layering on the right pieces that go with it. Do we need wireless vibration for this? Do we need lubrication management for that? Ultrasound. Are we doing precision alignment? Are we doing all these different things that that are available in the market? And are we using the right tools? But I think the other piece of it is, and I've seen this, I've worked managing sales teams. I worked as a pre-sales person. And when you watch the sellers a lot, they're not listening to your problem and how you necessarily solve it. They're trying to put butts in seats. That's how they get paid. But it's, and I'll go, I won't name the customer. I remember this was years ago. Just, it's a funny story. And I was working with a pretty green sales rep at the time. Great guy. Has gone on to do some awesome things in his career, but a pretty green sales rep. And we're in, and the planner for a school district, maintenance planner for a big school district, pulls out this massive stack of papers and goes, "Can Maximo fix my backlog?" I said, "No." I said, "It can organize the information of what's in your backlog so you can look at it more efficiently than trying to go through reams and reams of paper work orders." I said, "But if you don't take the discipline to prioritize work, to plan and schedule it properly, to look at what parts are needed, that's not just scanning in work orders does not make you a better organization. It helps you be able to see your problem more quickly, but you're not going to solve that problem." And I've said this to you, Greg, and to a lot of other people. Show me the maintenance department that has guys sitting around with nothing to do and a maintenance manager going, "I got too many mechanics and not enough work orders." And the first time you show me that, or the next time you show me, that's the first time you're going to show me that, because I've never seen a maintenance organization that isn't overextended in some form or fashion. So the tools can only take you so far if you don't have the right people, you don't do some process work and improvement. And I know people hate to hear it, but you got to have data that's at least sort of kind of decent, because if the work order says inspect pump, if you're got 30 years of experience and you've got gray in you and you've done this for a long time, you probably know what to look for. But if you've been there for a month and you're just coming out of a trade program, or just coming out of high school, or just coming out of the service, where, let's face it, a lot of the folks that work in our profession come from one of those areas, they probably don't know the steps to inspect a pump effectively.
The,
So you've got to
interesting.
help them out with that.
Well, that's a really common thing, and there's this. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's pretty well known. His name is Eric Houpier, and
Yep.
he talks about work packs.
Yes.
Meaning, by work packs, when we have a CMMS, right, or maybe some other technologies, but CMMS in this particular case, and a work pack would essentially be the guidance and the materials, like the documentation and that digitization, that has an impact for someone to see not just what it is called, but how you do it. What are the
Yes.
steps? Because even, let's say we get some young military, they come out of the military, they've done maintenance, they're using those systems and all that, and now they're going to come into your environment. They might know some things, but they might not know what that exact procedure is. Whereas the 25, 30-year maintenance veteran, you tell him, go and do this pump inspection. He's like, you said enough. I'm
Yeah.
getting it done, because he's going to look for everything, because that's automated for him. So there's a couple of things going on here. So bringing up Eric Houpier's idea of work packs helps with that.
Sure.
Having the 30-year veteran doing the work and documenting how the work was done, all those things get to live inside the CMMS that benefits somebody, because 30-year, 35-year, 25-year veteran of maintenance, he's getting ready to go, take the wife on a bunch of vacations and ride off into the sunset, and taking all that brilliant knowledge with him. So these practices of keep it simple, like overly simple, are going to hurt you, but the CMMS can house all of this and kind of create that. So sounds like you kind of agree with those best practices.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is. This is a situation that we're in where I don't think we do a very good job in a lot of cases explaining to the 30-year veteran tradesperson why it's important to download their experience. Uh, and it's not, and look, let's be clear. A lot of companies have done some very sketchy things to people. So I don't want to get into that, but I understand the trust issue. But you've got to really break it down to this. You got to explain to Bob or Greg or Adam or whoever it is, hey man, you're going to retire. And when you walk out that door, that knowledge goes with you. If you don't want me calling you when you're taking the wife on vacation or you're sitting in your fishing boat or you're on the seventh green and your phone rings, even if I'm going to pay you more as a consultant or a contractor to come back in and help me fix the problem, I'm not going to call you when you're sitting there doing nothing and are happy to come in and pick up the cash. I'm going to call you when you don't want to be bothered, you can't be bothered, you can't make the cash. So help out. We'll still bring you back if you want to do that work, but bring it into the system so that we can train the next generation of folks that are going to be doing this work. And let's take some certain industries that we use on a regular basis. If you work in food and beverage, you might eat some of the products that come out of the plant that you worked in. If you work in pharmaceutical, you might take the therapies that are manufactured in the facility that you worked in. If you work in petrochemical, you probably have a truck or a car that still uses gas, because even though electric vehicles are coming up, most of the vehicles on the road are still use gasoline or diesel. So if you work in industries where you're a consumer of the product you help maintain and manufacture, that doesn't go away just because you're retired. That's still going to be there. So having that knowledge transferred so that other people can understand it is important. And I think don't wait until they're 2 or 3 months out from retirement. Start focusing on cleaning up data, cleaning up process incrementally. Don't necessarily try to turn it into a project, because people push back on that because that's change and that creates FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt for your people. Don't create fear, uncertainty, and doubt for your people. Create an environment where you're trying to capture this to help them do their job better, help them be rewarded, put bonuses on the table, and don't make it just a pizza party. Like, do something a
Yep.
little
Yep.
bit better than a pizza party, please. I don't know what it is, because it's not one size fits all, but do something nice for your folks, because those 30-year vets, those 20-year vets of your space, they are going to retire. And let's face it, we've already seen it, and there's data from National Association of Manufacturing, NAM, and other organizations that show that tenure is dropping, even in the skilled trades, and people are moving from point A to point B because they can get more money or better benefits or shorter commute, whatever those things may be. They're getting that by moving. Loyalty isn't always rewarded in these environments. So you've got to get this information out of folks so that you have it, so that you can sustain and improve your operations and maintenance within your organization.
Yeah, it's really an interesting kind of concept to wrestle with and explore, because we would probably be fairly safe when we say maintenance people, and I'm not just talking about people that do the actual maintenance, but the people that facilitate it and empower it. I think they all want to do, I think it's pretty safe for us to say they all want to do really, really good work. But this idea of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, it happens at the customer level because there's a bunch of different things happening or not happening that can allow that to kind of creep in, and there's the confusion that leads to the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And then on the side of people providing solutions, there might be some of that. But with the maintenance personnel in general, the guys and gals that are out there doing it, I think they want to mentor and teach and help Joe, John, and Jill that just came in It might happen when they're in the lunchroom and all of a sudden Jill says, "Hey, John, I was doing this and this and I understood this and that. Have you ever had this, fault trip, or have you ever experienced this failure mode or failure code that I haven't seen before? I kind of know what it is." They're having those, and it becomes kind of disruptive when, John has to document that. And if John has any suspicion that or idea that I'm documenting this because they want me gone, then that goes back to leadership and
Yes.
culture and fundamental excellence, where your people, all of them, the veterans included, provided you give them a way to do it that's not severely disruptive, they want to leave places better than they were, but they want that confidence that it's okay to do it. And it's not just because they're going to get, rifled out of there. And I wonder about this idea behind how we do the documentation in our digitization efforts, regardless of other technologies. If it just comes down to that simple fact of make it easy and less disruptive, but also maybe this isn't so simple, make it part of their why.
Yeah.
Like, why are we doing this? Why do we do what we do? And why should we document it? If that actually makes sense and hits that wheelhouse for those individuals, you'll get much better buy-in. Make it make
Sure.
sense.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I look at folks, and when I talk to them, one of the things I always sit there and do is you try to, and it's hard to do because why is a tough question a lot of the time, because why sometimes, and I don't want to get into the psychology of this. I read a lot of, I stopped reading like sales books. I've started reading more psychology and things like that. But why puts people on defense for some reason. Now, if you talk about your why, then they're going to be more open. But you need to get to the why are we doing this? How do we do it? And what are we trying to get to? And if you can map that vision as a leader, and when I say leader, leader does not mean somebody with a C title or a VP title necessarily. It means anyone that wants to build up other people in the organization to be able to work with you, replace you. Because if you want to move up, you want to make sure that you can slide someone into your position that is competent, capable, and can work with you. And
And equally so, like they can do it as good, if not better.
yeah, you want to surround yourself with other people that have the right tendencies and the right traits to want to lead. And so I think if you position it that way, that we're working to build a better culture. Uh, I talked about this with some maintenance and reliability practitioners last week, and it was really about we hear from different folks in our space about reliability culture and what does it mean, and it's really about some fundamental things. Folks want to come in the morning, they want to do their job, they want to do it without headaches as much as possible, they want to do it safely, and they want to go home. It's not easy, but it is simple. If you plan and you schedule, don't plan work orders if you don't know that you have the parts. Don't schedule them if you don't have the parts. Like, don't do that. And Eric says something good about that. A planner should never be working in the current week. I love that statement. A scheduler can work in the current week. A planner should be looking out. And that way you have time to adjust the plan. When you're scheduling, it gets a little dicier because scheduling is going to get closer to the point of activity, but planning should be done well in advance so you can make a plan, you can adjust a plan. But I totally agree with you. You've got to start talking to teams about why you're doing it, what the impact is, and how it benefits them. And not just benefits the company, but how does it benefit the individual? Because again, if it happens on third shift and you're not on third shift and you don't want to come in at 3:00 in the morning because Tim or Sally is trying to do this work order and there's not enough detail, you're going to be grumpy. Because overtime's only so good sometimes. Sleep is a little bit better sometimes. So, and I think, it really boils down to, you talked about this, but look at our space. When we don't talk about CMMS, but we talk about the subject matter experts that help fill your CMMS with the knowledge. A lot of those folks turned wrenches, ran maintenance departments, ran plants, ran corporate reliability teams. And when they stopped having that corporate gig, they became practitioners and they moved on to the consulting and advisory side to help people do that because they're passionate and they care about helping advance the discipline of reliability and maintenance. They want to make people better at that.
And now that you're talking about that, and they're at all levels, right? There's certain types of experts and whatnot. Like I like for me, from a subject matter expertise perspective, it's of a certain type and tons of room to grow and improve. And I'm far more likely to pull in like a heavy hitter expert where I've got blind spots, and I do that more often than I say, yeah, here's a gig that I can take and make a bunch of money.
Yeah,
Because if I can't deliver, if I can't solve the damn problem, then I don't see the point. It doesn't mean that I don't want money, but I want good money. What I mean
yeah,
is the kind that doesn't keep you up at night. But it's really interesting, a lot of the things that you say where I talk about or think about and want to talk about all these
yeah,
concepts. If anybody's wondering why the hell are there so many damn consultants out there and everybody just, oh, they lost their gig and they became a consultant, and it's like, well, you're missing something. The reason is just like the reason there's so many CMMS type platforms out there in the hundreds, which is
mhm,
actually a true thing,
yeah,
is everybody works in a different style and fashion that may or may not have the similarities, but there's uniqueness there. And the same thing happens in the overall maintenance and reliability space, in that there are still plenty of problems that need to be solved. The reason there's so many consultants, and there's good ones and there's bad ones and there's a bunch of stuff in between, the problem exists. And that is why that's the case. And if anybody thinks we're going to boil that down and there's going to be a singular or a top 3 players in the space, it is not going to happen. They may buy a bunch of solutions,
yeah.
and you could whittle it down to 3 if everybody, if we found 3 companies that are going to get all the money and buy all the players, but you're still going to have to get into the weeds. And I think this contributes, the reason I'm bringing this up, to the fear, uncertainty, and doubt and the confusion. So my next question, and
Sure.
this is kind of like almost perfect based on everything that you said. I don't know if perfect's a thing, but it's interesting. I
I'll
was
take the
going,
compliment.
all right, all right, fair enough, fair enough,
I,
because it is.
we got to
It,
have
it
a little fun, right? I mean, come on.
if you're not having fun, you ain't doing it right.
Yeah, we're not doing it right now.
Yeah. So where are the vendors in this overall space? Oh my God, there are so many, right? Where are they missing the opportunity to improve this experience for the buyer in the industry? And why is this hype we were talking about so damn misleading?
I'm going to look at it from a CMMS perspective, and we can zoom out from there and go wider. CMMS sounds like a pretty simple concept, right? Okay, maybe not, maybe, but you're fundamentally like there's 3 main modules that just about everybody uses in some form or fashion within a CMMS. You got work management, you got equipment, you got inventory.
All right.
Those are the 3 kind of blocking and tackling. Because I'll go back again. I had a sales rep that I worked with. Great, she was fantastic sales rep. Did an awesome job, and she would call me with discovery. She would do discovery with a customer when we were trying to sell to them. She'd go, Adam, I need a 90-minute demo next Wednesday. This customer, wherever they were, and I go, what are we doing? She goes, standard CMMS. I go, what order? She goes, asset inventory work, or she would just put them in the order that was most important to least important for them. Got it. And it was, I knew what she needed me to go in and do to talk to the customer, have the right stories teed up in the right order, the right questions to ask to move the dialogue and talk about how to solve their problems. But take that very simple concept of work management, inventory management, and equipment management. There's not one person that's an expert in all those areas. There are, when you look at the consultants out there, there are companies that focus strictly on MRO. There are companies that focus on, and work is the biggest one of all of them. I mean, because you've got all the different technologies that fall into it. You've got work execution, you've got planning and scheduling, you've got condition monitoring, and so on and so forth. So that's a whole ecosystem in and of itself. And then asset management is a very nebulous term, because are we talking the financials? Are we just talking about replacement asset value? Are we talking about block? Like, it's so I know I'm a broken record, but it's about building the right ecosystem. And if one consultant or one company comes and says, we can solve all that for you, I apologize, because someone's going to do the you forgot this person or this company. Find the right team of people to solve your problem. It's like building a house. Back in the day, before electricity and indoor plumbing and all that stuff, a family could build a house themselves. It's pretty hard to be disciplined enough to do all of the work yourself, to build your own house, to lay foundation, to excavate, to roof, to put in windows, to put in electricity, to put in all that stuff. You want to hire a contractor and a team of professionals that are subject matter experts or domain experts in those different disciplines to build you a house that's going to last. And you may pay a little bit more up front, but it's going to be a heck of a lot better in the long run to pay a little bit more up front and have it last 30 or 40 years without it falling apart than trying to do it with the lowest price technically acceptable, and you get what you pay for. So I'm big on
I
pay
gotta interrupt
the right money up front and get the return on asset value. Get your OEE up. Get your wrench time where it needs to be. Stop storing pet peeve. Stop storing parts in your storeroom that you aren't going to use. Have you ever gone to the belt section of a storeroom? I mean, it's just a rubber graveyard. Most of those belts, by the time you need to use them, they're not usable. You're calling Motion or Granger or somebody else going, I need this Gates belt and I need it in the next hour because I got to do this work. Oh. So it's a whole. There's a lot of parts to unpack, but when we really break it down, Greg, it is, what's the problem I have? What does good look like? And who's going to help me get there most effectively to solve that problem? And it's the old concept. It's not new. It's probably close to 40 years old now, if not. Eli Goldbrat's theory of constraints from the goal. Mm-hmm. You're never done solving problems. You're just strengthening a weak link so it's no longer the weakest link. And then you've got to move to the next one. So we've got to stop treating work and maintenance and reliability as a project. It is continuous improvement. It is always looking for the next opportunity to improve. So that means if it takes 5 extra minutes on a work order to write down what you did so that you can input that, so that the next person that does that work order has the benefit of your knowledge, that's the culture we want to foster. That's the type of activity we want. It's not a project of let's go clean up our MRO data in the next 2 months so we don't have 50 records in there that say bearing with no part number and no manufacturer and no idea what piece of equipment it goes on, or even if we have that piece of equipment still. Let's focus on results-oriented development of our programs and our execution so that you're not looking for a needle in a haystack, that you have better confidence that you're doing the right work and doing it safely and not driving yourself crazy. Because that's too easy to do. Because we don't have a lack of information. We have a lack of usable information in most cases.
There's a lot to everything you just said. And
I know, sorry.
No. This is good because we want to get people thinking, and I don't know that we provide the answers. I think we're just trying to find clues and put the pardon me, put the breadcrumbs in the right place. And it's not easy for people out there to figure out, is that the right breadcrumb? Because that's how we think now.
Yeah,
everybody's skeptical. And by the way, I had a thought I was going to interrupt with, and that's long gone, because now you brought up Eli Goldbrat, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this before or not, but I read the goal when I was 16 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because somebody that my mother worked with in a factory where she was in front office and all these, heard that I had interest in some of these things when I was a teenager, and he sent the book home with a note in it and I ripped through that bad boy quick. I
Yeah.
couldn't stop reading it because I loved the way it was told with a story about a consultant, and I remember little things. And it was the book that taught me about a bottleneck.
Yep.
And it's one of the main things I remembered about the book, and it's where I almost fell in love with this idea of a consultant that's a road warrior that's out there making something happen for
Yep.
a facility and the people in it, and how there was resistance and all that. So it's a book that I recommend to people all the time.
Yeah.
Whether you love theory of constraints or not doesn't matter. There's value in it even absent theory of constraints.
Sure.
But
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
I'm a big fan of that idea of, well, more so for me, like in the world of CMMS, it was always something. I want to understand somebody's situation when I'm in a discovery call, or they've called me and, hey, we need to look at your system and all that. Yeah, I'll take your credit card. No, no, no. Why? Why do you think that? What's going on? Do you have this problem? Bottleneck identification, exploitation, and or elimination
Yeah.
are things that I have believed for, Jesus, long time
Yeah.
now. that that's where the money is within your organization, and it's also where the thriving and the ability of your various personnel and all these different aspects to keep moving forward and be happy, because we don't want to stay at the office for 12 hours if we can get out of there in 8.5. And by the way, I'm a fan. If you can get 8 hours worth of work done in 6 hours, whatever that really means,
Yeah.
go ahead, man. Go take your kid to baseball or whatever. I don't care about that. This has been a really fun conversation. And remember, it's all because we were talking about this post where,
Yeah.
it had something to do with fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and the confusion that's out there. Big landscape, people. I mean, you gotta look at people like Adam, maybe me, I don't know, or a bunch of other people that I know and have on the CMMS Radio podcast. They're there to help you, and they'll get into the weeds with you, and they will tell you no if they can't help you. I think that's important too. I just had a great conversation a little while ago with Brian Bieski,
Yeah.
um, and it just, all these things are critically important. And um, I'm really glad we got to have you on and talk about this. I want to know, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, Adam? I know they can find you on LinkedIn, but are there any other preferred methods where they can connect with you? And the reason I didn't call out a particular company is because you're actually connected to multiple
Yep.
ventures.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to focus on you. And for everybody out there, listening or watching, if you're doing something with ecosystems that are going to be impactful, meaningful across the board, that's what Adam, in my view, is very focused on doing, creating the right ecosystems and getting people plugged into those to get results. Fair?
Yeah. And I appreciate that. That's a great way of saying it. You know, and there's so many different words for it: partnerships, ecosystem, business development, whatever the case may be. I try to put, like I said earlier, I try to put the right people together in the right room to solve the problem. And it is generally more than one person that needs to be in the room with a customer when they're having that problem. You're going to have a piece of software, you're probably going to have some hardware, you're going to have some subject matter expertise at a base level. And if you can architect those solutions and do it right, we can work out the business model. We can work out how you're going to pay for it and all that. There's plenty of ways to do that now. It's infinitely more complicated, but more simple if that's possible, because there's so many options. But that's what I kind of do. That's what I'm really passionate about doing. I have a lot of folks in my network that I can refer folks to, because I'm not the expert in most of those areas. I just play one on TV.
Mhm.
But LinkedIn is certainly a great way to connect with me. I've got my contact info in there, but the other way is you can just shoot me a note at my Gmail. It's just adam.napolitano@gmail.com. I'm happy to hit you there, because that's an email address that I'll always have. But certainly connect with me on LinkedIn if you're interested.
I want to do the fun question segment that is typical of first timers on CMMS radio. So there are no wrong answers with any of these fun questions. First fun question, Adam. What is your favorite music?
Um, I love and hate that question because I actually have a music degree. I stumbled into the whole maintenance and reliability space, but so my answer is uh, love Southern rock, love classic rock, and love older jazz like 50s and 60s stuff. Um, like real country music, not some of the saccharine pop stuff that's out now, but like the good stuff. I pretty much like it all. If you looked at my phone or my iPod, it's a eclectic is an understatement.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Next one
Yeah.
is, what is your favorite sport or hobby? And if it's a sport, it doesn't necessarily have to be one that you play. It could be one that you like to watch or support or talk a bunch of trash about.
Golf.
All right.
Yep.
There,
I'm
that's
sporting my TPC Sawgrass shirt. I was lucky enough to get to play that 5 years ago when my daughters had a dance competition that was at Sawgrass. So I was like, all right, cool. I get to go play one of the coolest courses, and so yeah, we'll do that.
cool stuff. Cool stuff. Now here's the big one.
Yeah.
We call it a fun question, but I don't know if it's really fun. And there are no
All
wrong
right.
answers on this. I want to remind you on that. What is your philosophy, perspective, or anything you want to say about work-life balance?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think what you said earlier about if you can get 8 hours, what's expected to be 8 hours work done in 6, then you pay people for their output. You don't pay people for time worked. And I know that there's certain jobs that don't allow for that. But in as we move into more knowledge work and things like that, you pay for output. If you can meet the quality, you can meet the goal, you can do that. I'm a big believer in that. And I think one of the books, and it's a brand new release that kind of I liked it. Doesn't necessarily address work life specifically, but it talks about productivity. It's by Cal Newport, who wrote Deep Work and Digital Minimalism and stuff like that. He's got a new book out that just came out probably a month or two ago called Slow Productivity. And it talks about focusing on the right things, focusing on doing them qualitatively. So it's really just about, we've gotten so busy and overloaded and inundated with noise that we don't always focus on the important stuff that we've got to get done, the stuff that moves the needle, the stuff that makes an impact. So for me, I struggle with it, but I try to really focus on what are the 3 things that I've got to get done that are going to move the needle. And if I do those, it's a good day. And if I get stuck doing all the noise and answering emails and all that, and they're not really value added emails or things like that, I didn't have such a good day. I didn't have the productive day that I wanted. So for me, it's, how do you focus on doing the right things, getting those done so that you can do the things that recharge your battery and keep you passionate and excited about what we do on a day in and day out basis.
All right. Yeah. So there it is, everybody. I really appreciate those fun questions because it gives insights not only to you, but it might give somebody some ideas. And that's why I say there are no wrong answers. I just want people thinking. I personally think critical thinking is on the endangered species list. So, and common sense is a misnomer.
Ain't so common.
Damn right. Damn right. Adam, thank you so much for being here with me to record this episode of CMMS Radio. Long overdue and much appreciated.
Greg, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.